Hey everyone, I've got a recent finds video today for you with needle drops. This is stuff that I've found over the last few months that fits into a certain category that I tend to collect. That not a lot of people tend to collect, I think, at least in my circle of collecting friends. All of these are pretty much, well, they're all weird records. They're all very unusual records, a little unsettling, I guess, and mostly religious. For the most part, the really weird records I collect tend to be religious. I'm not sure why, but let's dig into this because there's a few things I have to show you, and they span a wide variety of weird. Now, let's start with a guy that I've collected for many years. His name is Merrill Womach. And Merrill Womach is a gospel singer, and he put out an album, I believe this is probably in the 60s. Here it is. It's Merrill Womach, and it's called My Song, as sung by Merrill Womach. But look, that's all Merrill Womach. Okay, so he put his picture on the cover many times. Very good-looking guy, right? Now, as I understand it, this was his first album. And after this album was released, Merrill, through a stroke of huge bad luck, had a plane crash. He was a pilot of a single person plane, and crashed and burned his face off. Burned his face clean off, and had a bunch of surgeries to reconstruct. Still maintained his love of making music and being in the music business, and also being in the record making business. And not only did he continue to make records, but he continued to put his face on the cover, and he continued to put multiple versions of him on the cover. Here's just another example. Now, these records, these two I just showed you, aren't something I found recently. These have been in my collection. I'm just trying to hip you to who Merrill Womach is, or was. There he is with his burned face, 4 of them. And if you didn't have enough of him, there's 4 more on the back. But just an example, a couple of examples there. I have many Merrill Womach records. But recently, I found this 1968 release. Merrill Womach sings Christmas carols. And you're thinking, oh, he doesn't have his face on the cover. Well, he does have it on the back cover. There's Merrill. And I have a really great story about Merrill, how I intersected with him in the 90s, how he helped my collection out. If you just go to my YouTube page and search Merrill Womach, you'll find the video. I'll put a link to it in the description of this video here. But yeah, Merrill Womach, I'm a huge fan and collector. He is no longer with us. He died some years ago, but great guy, and lost his face. But he kept putting out records. There's some more records there in the sidebar. All Merrill. So that's a good one. This next one, it's not religious necessarily, but it is fairly weird. And I found another copy of this years and years ago. It's not in this great a shape. So I think I'm going to maybe sell my original copy and keep this one. Maybe I'll keep them both. I don't know. But it's a fairly rare record, and it's fairly sought after by people who collect this weird stuff. But it is called the Inner Rhythm Choir. The Inner Rhythm Choir. And the album is called Do Remember Me. Okay, it's got this nice little illustration of some young people on the cover. And when I first saw this record, I thought it might be folk or something, or a children's record. And I just thought, well, it looks pretty private pressed. I've never seen it before. This is many years ago. I think I'll just look into it a little bit. So I flip it over, and I start looking at it, right? It's like, well, that's a lot of people singing. That's a lot of people in the choir. And then I started noticing the picture, and I started noticing that, oh, okay, most of them have Down syndrome or something. Okay. So I'm like, okay, well, then I'm sold on this. And when I realized, it's like, this is kind of what happened before Kids of Whitney High. Now, if you don't know the Kids of Whitney High, Google that. It's people like this who share the same condition, who formed a band. But in the 80s, it sounded a lot different than this sounds. These are a lot of traditional things. Amazing Grace, and Michael Row the Boat Ashore, and You Light Up My Life. One of my favorites is The Rock Around the Clock, and When the Saints Go Marching In. But the Kids of Whitney High came up in the 80s, and they got kind of popular. They got reissued on CD, and so this, I realized, wow, this is like pre-Kids of Whitney High. So I'm really happy to find this. It's in great shape, and the shrink, as you can see, and a great addition to my collection. Now, this next find may blow your mind. And I showed some people this on my live stream. But another kind of weird thing I collect, an artist that may be considered unique, odd, certainly religious. His name is Little Richard Miller. And Little Richard Miller I discovered some years ago in a thrift store. And I don't know how this happened. It was rock and roll gods were shining on me. I found 3 copies of this, all in the shrink wrap, all perfect condition. Sold one for $100, kept the other 2. And this is the first time I ever heard of Little Richard Miller. And this is years ago that I got this. I'm just showing you, giving you a little history. And it's Little Richard Miller, born without arms and legs. Okay, so there he is at the piano. No arms, no legs. And he's singing. And there's a bus there, and he can actually drive that bus, and it talks about that here in the back. And there's another picture of Richard holding his guitar. But I really got into Richard Miller after discovering this, and lo and behold, I found, at least 1 or 2 other records of his after this, which I promptly collected. And these are all finds at thrift stores and flea markets and stuff. And so I've been trying to really fill out my Richard Miller collection. There's not a whole lot on physical media by him, but there are a few things. And so then I came across this at a thrift store. I was flipping through a bunch of records. I tend to buy gospel stuff and resell it. There's a lot of that down here in the Carolinas. And I flipped past this record here, and I thought, okay, it looks like a standard gospel private press record. I'll check that out, look it up later. So as I'm really looking up these records in detail, I flipped to this and I go, okay, wait a second, Richard Miller? I was like, I know that name. Can this be, is this the Richard Miller I know and love and collect? Well, I'll tell you what, all I had to do was turn the cover over to find out. Here it is, The Many Voices of Little Richard Miller. Currently my prized possession in my Richard Miller vinyl collection. This is something that the back of the cover is not shown, even shown on Discogs. So the first time I've ever seen the back of this, which has pictures of Richard Miller throughout his life and indication of how young he was when he wrote these songs that are listed underneath each picture. So what this record is basically it's Richard Miller narrating through this history of songs he wrote since he was a little child. I mean, the first time he wrote a song was 3.5 years old. 2 of them, Cowboy Sweetheart and Roly Poly. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, down here at age 8, he wrote a song called Don't Flirt With Me. Okay, now, it's Richard Miller narrating, telling you, well, this is a song I wrote when I was 3 years old. And he's playing them from, I don't know, what sources he's got this stuff on. Some of them are old records, acetates. Some of them might be tapes. I don't know, but it's really lo-fi. I'm going to give you a few needle drops on this just to show you what's going on. But before I do that, let me show you what I found even more recently than this. Now, this I probably found 2 months ago, I'm guessing. And I was overjoyed. I was so happy to find this. I mean, I feel it's my duty almost to scan this and put this back on Discogs. But let's look at this Richard Miller thing I found by accident. And this is eBay. I hardly ever buy stuff for myself on eBay. I just don't think it's romantic enough. I like the hunt and finding things in the wild, really. But let me tell you, when I saw this, I think I was maybe just doing a search for Richard Miller records to see what I could find on eBay. And this comes up. And it was in a lot of similar items. And I got to show you. I didn't even know this existed until I found it on eBay. And I was so happy to get it. Okay, it's a book called Little Richard Miller Grows Up. And there he is. And it's in great shape. Look at it's in great shape. Kind of a glossy cover. This probably came out, God, I think this came out in 1966 is what I remember. This actual book, 1966. And it just goes through. It's got tons of pictures where he grew up, all throughout his life. I mean, it's amazing, dude. I mean, I'm always really excited when I find a record of his because it's got more pictures that I haven't seen of him before. But this is just chock full of them, man. I mean, this is such a great find. I was really, really, really excited to get this. All right, let's squeeze these needle drops in here. This is on Richard Miller Records. And let me tell you, this record is not in perfect shape. It's got a lot of dings and marks, and I don't even know if it's going to play all the way correctly. But I'm going to let you hear pretty much the whole first part, first intro by Richard into the first song. And then I'm going to dip around a little bit on the rest of the record. But just listen to the intro here by Mr. Richard Miller, otherwise known as Little Richard Miller.
Hi, the making of this album was very enjoyable for me and brought back a lot of memories because the album is a collection of the sounds of my voice all the way from 3.5 years old to 24 years of age. We regret that the quality of some of these records is not at its best, but keep in mind that several of the records were 15 to 20 years old at the time this album was made and had been played many times. Considering this, I think the records kept their quality very well, and we hope you enjoy listening to the different sounds of my voice over these 21 years. Like every youngster, I wanted to be a cowboy, and I wanted to be like Gene Autry. In case you find my speech hard to understand on this first record, that's what I tried to say at 3.5 years of age. So let's listen to my very first recording as my mother talks to me, and then I try to sing Cowboy Sweetheart at the age of 3.5 years.
This is what you want to be when you grow up.
Cowboy.
What cowboy do you want to be like?
Yeah.
Well, okay, Gene Autry's a singing cowboy. Can you sing?
Uh-huh.
Okay. What you gonna sing? Okay.
I wanna be the cowboy they are. Wanna all do up and run. Wanna be the cowboy they are.
Okay, this is a cowboy song. Let's go a little further here.
Last song was one of the cutest on the album, and we hope you got a chuckle from it. My next record.
That's crazy. Okay, let's go a little farther here. Wait.
This next song has a magic thing called rhythm, as I have never had a formal music lesson or voice training. Listening to songs over the radio to learn music, I also noticed the singers occasionally inviting the musicians to come in and play a little between verses. So I'll pick this up too, as you will notice after the first verse of this next song. At the age of 6, I had a couple of front teeth missing, and this still didn't help my speech. Candy Kisses came out spittingly to be Tandy Tisses.
Oh man, that's crazy. All right, one more. Did I say death comes from above? I think he did say that. All right, let's check out side 2 real quick.
And the steel guitar player must have known my bashfulness, because after the appropriate words in the chorus of the song, he made some teasing sounds on the steel guitar, and I almost broke into a laugh while singing. I think you can detect the place if you will listen closely as it plays. Also, my inability to pronounce the letter L at 8 years old proved interesting when it came time for me to sing the title of the song. Let's listen, back in 1951.
Well, there you have it. There's Don't Flirt With Me.
Did for me.
And encourage them rather than only to entertain them. The Lord has given me the talent.
Hell yeah. Only that's him playing guitar. Or banjo or whatever.
Those instrumentals were recorded at my present age of 24. We sincerely hope you enjoyed this album. I made more records than space allowed to be included, but I selected at least one record at each age to give you an idea of the sound of my voice. In closing, let's listen to one of my very first recordings again at 3.5 years of age, followed by my latest recording at 24.5 years of age. The second song is another one I had the pleasure of arranging the words and music to myself, and is a collection of...
All right, Richard.
Moses lifted the brazen serpent.
Wow, he's 24 with that voice? Sounds like 64. My Richard Miller collection is really ramping up lately. And there's really only maybe 3 things that I know about, I think, that I need to collect of Richard Miller's to fulfill my collection there. So you may think, oh my God, how can it get weirder than that? Well, I don't know if it's going to get weirder than that, but it's going to stick right around that level of weird. Just yesterday, I was running some errands. There was a thrift store nearby. I thought, let me just dive in there real quick. And this is a place where the records are marked $2.99 each, which is unheard of. I hardly ever buy records for more than $1. Typically down here in the Carolinas, they go anywhere from 25 cents each, 50 cents each to $1 each, sometimes $2 each. But this was marked $2.99. Now, I didn't pay that when I got to the register. For some reason, they only charged me $1.49 for the records. Maybe they're on sale that day. But this is what I found yesterday. And at first, again, like the Richard Miller record, at first I just flipped by this as a gospel record. Private press, looked like, I'd never seen it before. So I was like, okay, it's a record called Something Special. Looks like gospel. I threw it to the side in my pile. Now, when I went to look through that pile in detail, I figured out it's Something Special from Jeff, right? And I mean, it could be his hair that's special, or the bone structure. He's just a good-looking rock and roll kind of guy, man. Maybe this is some rock and roll gospel. What's special about it? Well, I'll tell you what's special about it. That. I noticed that, and I'm like, what? And I turn around. And oh yeah, he has things going on, which made him marketable to the Christian audience back then, because there was a whole era where people with physical handicaps did a lot of Christian records. And that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know if there's just not any more physically handicapped Christian entertainers anymore, but they had a niche back then. It was a genre almost. But when I saw that almost got by me, man. That almost snuck by me, and I almost didn't see it. Just in case you're wondering, there's the label. And this is something special to me. I've never heard of this guy, never knew this existed, but it is a really great addition to my weird religious record collection. And this is a genre gone by, and I haven't even read the little thing about him. That could be, I mean, if you want to take a screenshot of this and read it later, there could be some good information in there. I just don't know. I'm just so excited to own it that I decided, oh my God, tomorrow I have to do a video showing what I found today. So this is the crowning glory of my finds. And let me just say, as a bonus, this is in that lot of books I got that included Little Richard Miller. This was in the lot, and I really like it a lot. I haven't read it, but I just love the cover. Look at this. So nervous Christians. We'll end on that, you nervous Christians. And thanks for watching. May the rock and roll gods bless you all as they bless me. Keep looking for weird records and then send them to me. Willing to trade. If you're into this kind of stuff, I have extra Merrill Womach ready for the trading. All right, see you guys.